Even when wearing a helmet, safety glasses with side shields or goggles should always be worn to protect your eyes from flying particles. Many jobs require special protective clothing. Welders, like race car drivers, wear protective clothing to keep from being burned. Burns are the most common injury to welders, due to sparks landing on the skin. Welding arcs are very intense and cause burns to skin and eyes with just a few minutes of exposure. The actual gear varies with the job being performed. Protective clothing must allow freedom of movement while providing adequate coverage against burns from sparks, weld spatter, and arc radiation. Many types of clothing will protect you from ultraviolet UV radiation exposure, which appears much like sunburn. The clothing we will cover includes general clothing, safety glasses, shoes, gloves, helmets, and leathers. Because of its durability and resistance to fire, wool clothing is suggested over synthetics. Synthetics should never be worn because they melt when exposed to extreme heat. Cotton can be worn if it is specially treated for fire retardation. Avoid rolling up your sleeves or pant cuffs. Because sparks or hot metal could deposit in the folds. Also, wear your pants outside your work boots, not tucked in, to keep particles from falling into your boots. In the welding environment, there are two very good reasons for wearing hearing protection. Earplugs and earmuffs keep metal sparks and airborne particles from entering your ear canal. And of course, to protect your hearing from the effects of excessive noise. The intensity of the noise and the duration of exposure determine the extent of the hazard to your hearing. Levels of noise over 85 decibels, averaged over an 8-hour workday, are potentially hazardous to your hearing. When noise levels are painful or are loud enough to interfere with your ability to hear others speaking at a normal conversational volume, this is an indication that levels are potentially hazardous. For most welding operations, it is advised to wear hearing protection. There are two good reasons to wear earmuffs or plugs. First, to keep flying sparks or metal out of your ears. Second, to prevent hearing loss as a result of working around noisy equipment or power sources and processes, including plasma arc cutting. As with radiation exposure to the eyes, the length and number of times you are exposed to high levels of noise determines the extent of the damage to your hearing. If it is not possible to reduce the level of noise at the source by moving either yourself or the equipment, or by using sound barriers, then you should wear adequate ear protection. Consult an industrial hygienist to measure the noise exposure in an area and recommend the proper hearing protection. Other protective wear for heavy work or especially hazardous situations include flame-resistant suits, aprons, leggings, leather sleeves, shoulder capes, and caps worn under your helmet. It is essential that your eyes are protected from radiation exposure. Infrared, IR radiation can cause retinal burning and cataracts. IR can usually be felt as heat. Ultraviolet UV radiation, which cannot be felt, can cause an eye burn known as welder's flash. This condition may not be apparent until several hours after exposure. It can cause extreme discomfort and can result in swelling, fluid excretion, and temporary blindness. Normally, welder's flash is temporary, but repeated or prolonged exposure can lead to permanent injury of the eyes. Helmets and handheld face shields offer the most complete shading against arc radiation. They are made from a hard plastic or fiberglass to protect your head, face, ears, and neck from electric shock, heat, sparks, and flames. The proper shade lens must be chosen for the welding process being used. Many modern welding helmets use auto-darkening shades. Refer to the helmet's manufacturer's instructions for how to set up and use an auto-darkening device. When welding, it is essential that you protect your eyes from harmful visible and non-visible radiation. Always wear the proper helmet with the correctly shaded lens for the type of welding you are doing. Generally, shielded metal arc welding with small diameter electrode require protective shading 7 and up, while processes such as carbon arc welding can necessitate using protective shading as high as 14. Infrared radiation has been known to cause retinal damage and cataracts. Even brief exposure to ultraviolet or UV rays can result in a burn to the eyes, known as welder's flash. Welder's flash may not be evident until several hours after exposure. It causes extreme discomfort and can result in swelling, fluid excretion from the eyes, and even temporary blindness. Normally, this condition is temporary, but repeated overexposure to UV radiation can result in permanent eye damage. The proper lens shading is primarily a preventative measure for protecting your vision. When choosing the correct shading, refer to Supplement 1 in Lincoln Electric's E205 welding safety publication. The general rule of thumb is to choose a filter too dark to see the arc and then move to the next lighter setting without dropping to below the minimum recommended rating. Helmets and face shields offer the highest degree of protection against arc radiation. The shade slips into the window on the front of the shield. Shields and helmets also protect you from sparks, heat, and electric shock. ANSI Z87.1 rated safety glasses should also be worn with side shields to protect your eyes from flying particles. Visible light can also be a hazard to your eyes, but it is easier to tell if it is dangerous because visible light that is painful to look at without squinting is potentially harmful to your vision. Infrared radiation cannot be seen, but it is felt as heat, and there is not a way to sense if you are being overexposed to ultraviolet radiation. So just don't take any chances and always wear eye and face protection with the proper protective shading. Ultraviolet radiation can also burn exposed skin. This process is similar to getting sunburn from overexposure to the sun. Overexposure to arc rays without protection can lead to second and third degree skin burns. Repeated overexposure to ultraviolet radiation is a known cause of skin cancer. Always wear flame-resistant protective clothing to cover any skin that might be exposed to arc rays. Welders should be able to wear contact lenses safely in most situations, provided they wear appropriate industrial eyewear and use the protection we've already discussed with respect to protection against arc rays. Anyone wearing contacts on the job should consult with their company medical staff and their own ophthalmologist. Contacts should generally not be worn in extremely dusty environments or where there is any danger of chemical splash or exposure to corrosives or organic solvent vapors. Leather boots with 6 to 8 inch ankle coverage are the best foot protection. Where heavy work is done, safety toe protection should be worn. Metatarsal guards over the shoelaces can protect them from falling objects and sparks. Heavy, flame-resistant gloves from materials such as leather should always be worn to protect your hands and wrist from burns, cuts, and scratches. And as long as they are dry and in good condition, they will offer some insulation against electric shock. When preparing sharp metals for welding, wear cut-resistant gloves.